The unexpected arrival. In the vast expanse of space, where stars twinkled like distant memories, there lay Outpost Epsilon 9, a weathered space station clinging to existence on the fringes of human-controlled territory. Inside its metallic corridors, Jake Hawkins wiped sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of grease across his forehead. At 32, he was known as one of the youngest, and arguably most skilled, mechanics on Epsilon 9. Yet, despite his talents, financial success remained elusive in this remote outpost, which struggled to stay afloat amidst an economic ocean that threatened to swallow it whole. The scent of scorched metal and ozone hung heavy in the air as Jake squinted at a faulty power coupling before him. He muttered under his breath, "Come on, you piece of junk," giving it a gentle tap with his trusty wrench. To his relief, the device sputtered back to life, emitting a faint blue glow. A small smile crept across his face. It was moments like these that reminded him why he loved fixing things. Suddenly, a tremor shook the station violently, nearly knocking him off his feet. Warning klaxons blared to life, their shrill cries echoing through the metal corridors. "What in the blazes?" Jake exclaimed as he scrambled to his feet, shoving tools into his belt while racing toward the source of commotion. As he approached the docking bay, chaos unfolded before him. Technicians and dockworkers scattered like startled fish at the sight of a massive ship unlike anything he had ever seen limping into their hangar. Its sleek organic lines were marred by scorch marks and gaping wounds in its hull. Despite its injuries, the vessel radiated an aura of power and alien beauty that drew Jake closer. He found himself captivated by this strange craft as it settled onto the docking clamps with a groan of protesting metal. The airlock hissed open, releasing a cloud of sweet-smelling vapor that enveloped him like an embrace from another world. Jake's jaw dropped when three figures emerged from the mist. They were unmistakably female, but stood at least 9 feet tall with powerful frames that spoke volumes about their strength and agility. Their skin shimmered with an iridescent quality ranging from deep purple to vibrant green, while their hair seemed to float around their heads as if suspended in water. The lead alien, her skin a deep indigo hue, surveyed the docking bay with piercing silver eyes that seemed to see right through him. When her gaze fell upon Jake, he felt an electric jolt run down his spine. A mixture of fear and awe coursed through him. "Are you in charge here?" she boomed, causing several nearby workers to flinch. Jake glanced around nervously. Most senior staff had conveniently made themselves scarce. He squared his shoulders and stepped forward, trying to project confidence despite his racing heart. "I'm not exactly in charge," he replied cautiously, "but I might be able to help. Name's Jake Hawkins, chief mechanic." The alien woman's eyes narrowed as they assessed him carefully. "I am Captain Zera of the Stellar Sovereignty," she declared with authority. "Our ship requires immediate repairs. We have limited time and resources. Can you assist us?" Jake's mind raced at her words. This was not just any repair job. It was an opportunity unlike any other he had faced before. The technology aboard this alien ship was far beyond anything he had ever worked on. It would be both a challenge and a risk. But looking into Captain Zera's desperate eyes made him realize that she wasn't just seeking help. She was pleading for it. He took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. "I'll do my best," he said with newfound determination, offering her a confident smile despite feeling anything but confident inside. "But I'll need to know what I'm dealing with." Captain Zera exchanged glances with her companions before nodding curtly. "Very well, human," she replied gravely. "But be warned, our technology is not to be trifled with. One wrong move could spell disaster for your entire station." As Jake followed these towering aliens into their ship, he couldn't shake off an unsettling feeling that he was stepping into something far bigger than just a simple repair job. The air hummed with energy around him. Strange lights pulsed along corridors adorned with intricate designs that seemed alive. "So," he said while trying to keep his voice steady amidst rising anxiety, "what brings a ship like yours to our humble outpost?" Must be something pretty serious to risk landing in your condition. The smallest of the aliens, still taller than Jake, turned her head slightly toward him, as if pondering how much information she could share without revealing too much. Her skin was pale green with patterns that shifted and swirled hypnotically under ambient light. "We are being pursued by those who would see our mission fail," she said solemnly, her voice softer yet filled with urgency. "The fate of entire worlds hangs in the balance. Your aid may prove more crucial than you can imagine." Jake whistled low under his breath. No pressure there, but even amid uncertainty lay excitement. The thrill that came from knowing he could make a difference in something so vast and important ignited something within him. "Well then," he replied with renewed enthusiasm while adjusting his tool belt tighter around his waist. "Let's see what we're dealing with." "I may not know much about alien politics or interstellar warfare," he added jokingly, "but I do know machines, and every machine follows certain principles." As they reached what appeared to be the engine room, pulsating heart at the center, the sight took Jake's breath away entirely. Sphere radiating energy surrounded by intricate patterns glowed softly amidst shadows cast by flickering lights overhead. An engineering marvel unlike any he had ever encountered before. "It's incredible," he exclaimed involuntarily while stepping closer for inspection without realizing how dangerously close he stood until Captain Zara cleared her throat loudly behind him. "Careful," she warned sharply but without malice evident in her tone. Concern laced through every syllable spoken next when she continued, "This is not merely machinery, it is alive." Jake nodded slowly as understanding dawned upon him. This wasn't just about fixing broken parts anymore. It was about understanding how everything worked together harmoniously within this advanced vessel. And so began an unexpected journey where human ingenuity would meet alien technology. A partnership forged under pressure amid looming threats beyond imagination. The challenge ahead. As Jake stood in the heart of the alien ship, the pulsating energy sphere before him seemed to resonate with his very being. It was a sight that filled him with both awe and trepidation. The intricate patterns of light danced around the sphere, creating an almost hypnotic effect that made it difficult for him to focus on the task at hand. Captain Zara watched him closely, her silver eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and urgency. "Understanding the technology. All right, let's get to work," Jake said, shaking off the mesmerizing effect of the energy sphere. He approached the console adjacent to it, which was adorned with buttons and screens that flickered with unreadable symbols. "What exactly happened to your ship?" he asked, trying to gather as much information as possible. Zara stepped closer, her tall frame casting a shadow over him. "We were ambushed by a hostile faction known as the Varkari," she explained, her voice steady but laced with tension. "They damaged our propulsion system and compromised our energy core. We need to make repairs quickly or we risk losing everything." Jake nodded, his mechanic instincts kicking in. He had dealt with plenty of broken machinery in his time, but this was unlike anything he had ever encountered. "Can you show me where the damage is?" he asked. With a swift motion, Zara gestured for him to follow her deeper into the ship. As they walked through the narrow corridors illuminated by soft blue lights, Jake couldn't help but marvel at the alien architecture surrounding him. The walls seemed to pulse gently, almost as if they were alive. He felt a sense of reverence for this vessel that had traveled across galaxies. The engine room. They arrived at what appeared to be the engine room, a vast chamber dominated by the energy sphere at its center. Surrounding it were various components that Jake recognized from his training, but had never seen in practice. He approached a panel covered in intricate designs and began examining it closely. "Here," Zara said, pointing to a section of the panel where several wires were frayed and sparking intermittently. "This is where we sustained most of the damage." Jake's heart raced as he assessed the situation. "I'll need tools. Something I can use to stabilize these connections," he replied, glancing back at Zara. "Take what you need from our supply," she instructed, her tone firm yet encouraging. As Jake rummaged through various compartments filled with alien tools and devices, he felt a rush of excitement mixed with anxiety. This was not just about fixing a ship. It was about saving lives and possibly altering the fate of their worlds. A moment of doubt. While working on stabilizing the connections, Jake found himself lost in thought. What if he made a mistake? What if his efforts weren't enough? The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. He glanced at Zara and her crew. Their lives depended on him getting this right. "Hey," Zara said softly, breaking into his thoughts. "You're doing well. We believe in you." Her words struck a chord within him. Jake realized that despite their differences, despite being from entirely different worlds, they shared a common goal: survival. With renewed determination, he focused on his task: cultural exchange. As he worked, Zara began explaining more about their technology and how it functioned. "Our energy core is linked to our life force," she said, her voice steady as she described its significance. "If it fails, not only do we lose our ship, but we also lose our connection to our home." Jake listened intently, fascinated by how deeply intertwined their technology was with their biology. "So it's like your ship is an extension of yourselves?" he asked. "Exactly," Zara replied with a nod. "And that connection makes us vulnerable, but it also makes us strong." Their conversation flowed easily as they exchanged knowledge about their respective worlds. Jake shared stories about Epsilon 9 and its struggles, while Zara spoke of her home planet's rich culture and history. The clock is ticking. However, time was running short. As Jake worked diligently to repair the damaged wiring, he could feel an undercurrent of urgency growing within him. The longer they stayed exposed in Epsilon 9's docking bay, the greater the risk of being discovered by the Varkari. "Can you speed this up?" one of Zara's crew members asked impatiently as he glanced nervously at the airlock behind them. "I'm doing my best," Jake snapped back defensively, but quickly softened his tone when he saw Zara's reassuring nod. "Focus on your work," she said calmly. "We trust you." With that encouragement echoing in his mind, Jake poured all his energy into repairing the connections as quickly and efficiently as possible, while ensuring everything was secure for flight. A breakthrough. Finally, after what felt like hours of intense concentration and effort, Jake stepped back from his workbench and wiped his brow with relief. "I think I've done all I can for now," he announced breathlessly. Zara inspected his work closely before turning back to him with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "You've done well," she said appreciatively. "Now we need to initiate power flow through the core." Jake nodded. This was it, the moment of truth. He moved back towards the energy sphere and began inputting commands into the console based on what Zara had taught him earlier. As he pressed the final button, there was a momentary pause before a low hum filled the room, followed by a surge of light emanating from within the core itself. The pattern surrounding it grew brighter and more vibrant as energy flowed through its veins once again. Unexpected consequences, but just as relief washed over them like a wave crashing onto shore, alarms blared throughout the ship, red lights flashing ominously along every corridor. "What's happening?" Jake shouted over the cacophony. "The Varkari have found us," Zara exclaimed urgently as she rushed toward another console to assess their situation. Jake's heart sank. They didn't have much time left now that they were exposed. He could feel adrenaline coursing through his veins as he turned toward Zara with determination etched on his face. "We need to get out of here," he declared resolutely. Zara nodded fiercely. There was no time for hesitation now. They had come too far together for anything less than victory. With newfound resolve fueling their actions amidst chaos unfolding around them, their fates intertwined, Jake prepared himself for whatever lay ahead. Unlikely allies. As the alarms continued to blare, Jake felt the weight of the moment settle heavily on his shoulders. He had just stabilized the energy core of an alien ship, and now they were facing an imminent threat from the Varkari. The urgency in Captain Zara's voice fueled his determination as he prepared to fight alongside these remarkable beings. preparing for battle. Jake, we need to get our shields up and prepare for evasive maneuvers, Zara commanded, her eyes scanning the control panel. Can you help me with the navigation systems? Absolutely, Jake replied, his heart racing. He had never worked on an alien navigation system before, but he was ready to learn. He followed Zara to another console, where a holographic display flickered to life, revealing a star map filled with unfamiliar constellations. Zara pointed at a blinking red dot on the map. That's where the Varkari ship is located. They're tracking us, and if we don't move quickly, they'll catch up. Jake studied the display, trying to make sense of it all. What's our current speed? He asked. We're barely at half capacity due to the damage, she replied, frustration evident in her tone. We need to reroute power from non-essential systems to boost our speed. Working together, Jake nodded, feeling a surge of adrenaline as he began working on the navigation console. He quickly identified several systems that could be temporarily disabled without compromising their safety. Life support could be adjusted slightly, and some of the environmental controls could be dialed back. As he input commands into the console, Zara worked beside him, her long fingers dancing over her own controls with practiced ease. You're doing great, she said encouragingly. Just keep an eye on that energy output. We can't afford any more fluctuations. With each passing moment, Jake felt more connected to this alien crew. They were all in this together, humans and aliens alike, facing a common enemy that threatened their existence. Glimpse of fear. Suddenly, one of Zara's crew members, tall alien with striking emerald skin, burst into the room. Panic etched across his features. Captain, the Varkari are launching their fighters. Jake's stomach dropped at the news. He had seen enough space battles in holo movies to know that this was serious. What can we do? He asked urgently. Zara took a deep breath, her eyes narrowing as she considered their options. We need to prepare for combat while maintaining our course, she said decisively. Jake, can you assist with our weapon systems? Sure, Jake replied, his mind racing as he followed Zara into another chamber filled with advanced weaponry, unlike anything he had ever seen. Learning on the fly. Inside the weapons control room, Jake was greeted by an array of consoles and displays that pulsed with energy. He felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he approached one of the panels. Zara stood beside him, her presence reassuring as she explained how their weapons operated. Each weapon system is linked to our energy core, she said, pointing at a glowing interface. We need to prioritize targeting systems while ensuring we don't drain too much power from our shields. Jake nodded and began following her instructions. He adjusted settings based on what he had learned from fixing machines back on Epsilon 9. Everything had its limits, and he was determined not to push them too far. The first encounter, just as they finished preparing the weapon systems, a loud crash echoed through the ship as Varkari fighters breached their outer defenses. The ship shook violently under the assault. Brace for impact, Zara shouted as she secured herself at her station. Jake gripped the edge of his console tightly, feeling his heart race as he prepared for whatever came next. The holographic display showed multiple red dots approaching rapidly. They were outnumbered but not outmatched. Target those fighters, Zara commanded sharply. Jake, fire when ready. With adrenaline coursing through him, Jake focused on the nearest fighter and pressed the firing button. Beam of energy shot forth from their ship, striking one of the Varkari fighters directly and causing it to spiral out of control before exploding in a brilliant flash of light. Nice shot, Zara cheered as she recalibrated their targeting systems for another round. Building camaraderie. As they fought side by side against the Varkari forces, something remarkable happened. Jake began to feel a sense of camaraderie with Zara and her crew. They were all working together toward a common goal, survival against overwhelming odds. Keep firing, Jake shouted as he targeted another fighter that swooped dangerously close to their ship. Zara's crew members moved with precision and grace, They communicated effortlessly through gestures and expressions that transcended language barriers. It was clear they were trained warriors who had faced danger before. A moment of reflection. In between bursts of energy fire and evasive maneuvers, Jake took a moment to reflect on how far he had come since stepping foot aboard this alien vessel. Just hours ago, he was a mechanic struggling to make ends meet on Epsilon 9. And now here he was fighting alongside aliens in a desperate battle for survival. The realization struck him. This was what he had always wanted, a chance to be part of something greater than himself. He felt alive in ways he hadn't experienced before. Every challenge brought them closer together as allies united against a common foe. The tide turns. With each successful shot fired from their ship's weapons system, Jake felt more confident in his abilities and more connected to Captain Zara and her crew. They were no longer just strangers from different worlds. They were comrades fighting for each other's survival. But just when it seemed like they might gain an upper hand against the Varkari fighters, another wave appeared on their scanners, larger than before. "They're sending reinforcements," Zara exclaimed with alarm as she scanned the readouts frantically. "We can't hold them off forever," Jake shouted back over the din of alarms and explosions echoing throughout the ship. Zara turned toward him with fierce determination in her eyes. "Then we must find a way out. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We'll have to outrun them." Dangerous escape. As Jake worked furiously at his console, while coordinating with Zara's orders for evasive maneuvers, the ship swerved sharply left then right. He could feel every jolt reverberate through his body like thunderclaps echoing across space itself. The Varkari ships pursued relentlessly behind them. Explosions lit up space around them like fireworks gone awry. But they couldn't give up now. They needed an escape plan. "Head toward that asteroid field," Jake suggested suddenly after spotting an opening on their scanners. A narrow path through jagged rocks that would provide cover against enemy fire. Zara nodded decisively without hesitation. "Do it. Everyone brace yourselves." With adrenaline pumping through him like fuel igniting flames within, a wild rush surged forth as they plunged into darkness among asteroids tumbling through space. Their only hope lay ahead. A new kind of teamwork. Inside this chaotic dance among celestial debris, where danger lurked at every turn, Jake realized something profound. Teamwork wasn't merely about working alongside each other. It was about trusting one another completely even when faced with uncertainty. As they navigated through tight spaces between massive rocks while dodging enemy fire, it became clear that every decision mattered greatly. Each moment brought them closer together, not just as allies but also as friends willing to risk everything for one another. And so began an unexpected journey where human ingenuity would meet alien technology. A partnership forged under pressure amid looming threats beyond imagination.